The great Galactic Council had gathered inside their shining hall. It was a place of power, built from crystal and steel, floating in the heart of neutral space. For 3,000 years, it had been a symbol of peace. Wars were ended here. Treaties were signed here. Empires that hated each other sat together here, under one roof, because they feared the Council's judgment. But today, the hall was silent. Leaders of countless alien empires sat frozen in their seats. Some were reptilian, their sharp teeth hidden behind closed jaws. Some were insectoid, their wings twitching nervously. Some were tall, shining beings of crystal whose bodies glowed when they felt fear. And right now, every single one of them was glowing, trembling, or whispering. The silence was not peace. It was terror. Whispers spread like fire across the chamber. No one spoke loudly, because even the bravest leader felt the same chill. Something had changed in the galaxy. Something dangerous. Something that had not happened for thousands of years. The Council had learned a name. A single word. A word that carried weight, memory, and fear. That word was humanity. The moment the word was spoken, the hall shook, not because of earthquakes, not because of weapons, but because of fear itself. It was as if the walls remembered. As if the galaxy itself remembered. One alien, a scaled senator from the Drakari Empire, whispered with a voice like stone scraping on stone. Why now? Why are humans preparing for war? Another, a crystalline envoy, let their light flicker in panic. They have been silent for so long. Why do they rise now? No one had the answer. The truth was simple. For 3,000 years, peace had ruled. Borders had stayed calm. Empires had traded, not fought. And in all that time, humans had been quiet. The galaxy thought Earth was a forgotten world, weak and fragile. The Council believed humanity had given up its hunger for war. But then, reports started to arrive. Small at first. Almost ignored. Scouts spoke of shipyards hidden in the shadows of moons. Spies reported human fleets training in silence, moving like shadows between asteroids. Colonies that were thought to be quiet farms turned out to be strongholds, filled with weapons no one had ever seen. At first, the Council laughed. They told themselves humanity was too small, too scattered. They said humans were only preparing for defense, not war. But then the evidence grew. Too much to ignore. Entire fleets were being built. New technologies were being tested. Strange signals were caught, encrypted so tightly even the greatest alien minds could not break them. And through it all, humanity said nothing. No speeches. No threats. No promises. Only silence. It was this silence that terrified the Galactic Council. One insectoid queen, her wings rattling, broke the silence of the chamber. I remember the old wars, she hissed. I remember the battles before the truce. We thought humans were fragile, but they fought us to the edge of extinction. We could not break them. Even in defeat, they rose again. And again. And again. Her words echoed across the hall. Some aliens turned their eyes away, as if ashamed to remember. Others growled in anger, refusing to admit the truth. But deep inside, they all knew she was right. Humans were different. They were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They were not the oldest. But they had something no one else had. Willpower. When humans fought, they did not stop. When they lost, they returned stronger. And when they won, they never forgot. Now the galaxy was asking the same question. Why were humans preparing for war? A silence fell again. Heavy. Crushing. The reptilian warlord slammed his claws against the table, cracking the stone. We cannot wait. If they rise again, all our empires will burn. We must strike now, before they are ready. But a soft, glowing voice rose from the crystalline envoy. And if we strike, and fail? Do you not remember what happened last time? Humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not forget. If we attack, and they survive, then we will unleash something far worse. The council fell into chaos. Some shouted for war. Some begged for peace. Others simply sat in silence, staring at the great hologram of Earth floating in the center of the chamber. That small blue planet. That fragile world. That name. Humanity. The whispers grew louder. Fear spread faster. The truth was simple, but terrifying. The Galactic Council did not tremble because of what humans had said. They trembled because of what humans had not said. They trembled because humanity was silent. And in that silence, the galaxy could already hear the sound of war drums. The silence of Earth was louder than thunder. Across the galaxy, empires waited for a reply, for a warning, for a demand. But humanity spoke no words. They gave no answers to the Council, no messages to the stars. They only worked, hidden behind shadows. And that silence grew heavier every passing day. Reports began to pour in, first from scouts, then from spies, then from entire fleets that had seen things they could not explain. On the far side of Luna, the moon, strange lights burned in the darkness. Massive structures rose from the surface, shipyards large enough to build warships the size of cities. Satellites that once scanned for minerals now vanished into static. The few who got close enough never returned. The whispers spread. They are building something. They are preparing for war. They have not forgotten the old battles. At first, many dismissed it as fear. The galaxy had laughed at humans before. They called them reckless, fragile, too emotional to survive. But the whispers did not stop. They grew, spreading like poison. On the council floor, voices argued endlessly. The insectoid queen's eyes flickered. I have seen their colonies. I sent my spies to their farms and mines. Those are not farms. Those are fortresses. Every human child is raised with drills, with training, with fire in their eyes. This is no longer a peaceful species. This is an army. The crystalline envoy shook with pale light. And yet, they say nothing. No threats. No demands. Not even a promise of war. What kind of enemy hides its teeth until the last moment? A reptilian warlord snarled in frustration. Cowards hide in silence. If they were truly ready, they would already attack. But no one answered him. Because everyone knew the truth. Humans were not cowards. They were hunters. And hunters did not roar before the kill. The whispers spread beyond the council. Across trading worlds and outer colonies, merchants spoke of human freighters that moved without escort, yet never fell to pirates. Whole fleets of raiders vanished after trying to intercept them. Refugees whispered of seeing ships with weapons no one had names for, weapons that melted steel like wax and cut through shields like glass. No proof ever returned. Only whispers. Whispers that grew into fear. Whispers that became prophecy. Some remembered the old wars. They remembered how humans fought when they were cornered. They remembered the siege of Karos, where 10 human ships held back 200 alien cruisers for 6 days, and when the last ship fell, humans detonated their cores, dragging half the enemy fleet into death with them. They remembered how humans turned every defeat into fuel for the next victory. And now, they were silent. The insectoid queen whispered again, almost to herself. Why now? Why rise after 3,000 years of peace? What do they see that we do not? The chamber grew colder. No one answered her question, because deep down, every alien knew the answer. Humans were not preparing for war without reason. They had seen something. They were waiting for something. And that thought made the galaxy tremble. Because if humans were preparing for war, then war was already coming. The council tried to act. Resolutions were written, demands were sent to Earth, envoys were dispatched. But every message was met with silence. Every envoy disappeared. The more the galaxy asked, the less humanity replied. And in that silence, the whispers grew into terror. Maybe they are building fleets larger than we can imagine. Maybe they have weapons that break the laws of physics. Maybe they are not preparing to defend themselves, maybe they are preparing to strike first. The reptilian warlord growled. Enough. If we continue to wait, we will lose everything. We must gather our fleets and strike before they are ready. Burn their shipyards. Crush their colonies. End this threat before it begins. But the crystalline envoy's voice shook with light. And what if you fail? What if your fleets vanish like the pirates, like the raiders, like the spies who never returned? What then? The silence that followed was worse than any shouting. Because no one, not even the proud warlords, wanted to test the humans. Not yet. The council sat frozen, divided between fear and rage. Every empire felt the same storm rising. Armies began to move. Borders thickened with warships. The galaxy waited, breathless, for the first spark. But humanity gave them nothing. Only silence. And in that silence, the whispers became a question asked in every dark hall, every throne room, every council chamber across the stars. What are the humans planning? No one knew. But everyone feared the answer. The Galactic Council chamber was no longer a place of order. Where once treaties were signed and peace was declared, now the air trembled with anger, fear, and confusion. Alien voices clashed against each other, echoing through the shining hall. The great chamber that had stood for thousands of years as a symbol of unity was breaking apart under the weight of one single word: humanity. The insectoid queen spread her wings wide, the sharp edges scraping against the crystal walls. Her voice hissed like knives. You have all heard the whispers. Humans build fleets in silence. They build weapons in the shadows. They do not speak, but their actions are clear. They prepare for war. And when they rise, we will all fall. A roar answered her words. The reptilian warlord slammed his clawed hand on the stone table, cracking it. His scales shimmered with rage as his deep voice thundered. Lies. Fear has poisoned you all. Humans are nothing. Fragile bones, weak flesh. They survived the old wars only because we allowed it. If they dare rise again, we will crush them once more. We must strike now. Cries of agreement rose from his allies. They shouted for fleets, for weapons, for an invasion before it was too late. But not everyone agreed. The crystalline envoy's body glowed a pale blue, trembling with light. Its voice was soft, but its words cut sharper than any blade. And what if you are wrong? What if humanity has become stronger than before? What if their silence hides weapons we cannot imagine? Have you forgotten history? Have you forgotten how many of our fleets vanished when we last faced them? How many worlds were burned by their fire? The hall grew restless. Some shouted for war, others begged for caution. No voice carried peace. A tall, shadowed delegate from the avian tribes spoke with a harsh cry. We cannot ignore the truth. Spies vanish. Raiders vanish. Even fleets vanish. The humans do not roar before battle, they wait. And when they strike without mercy. The chamber trembled with those words. Every alien in the room carried memories of the ancient wars, stories passed down for thousands of years. They remembered the battles where humans had been outnumbered, surrounded, and broken yet still refused to surrender. They remembered the stories of human fleets burning themselves alive just to drag their enemies into death with them. Humans had never been the strongest, but they had always been the most dangerous. And now, they were silent. The insectoid queen hissed again. You do not understand. It is not their weapons that frighten me. It is their patience. They do not speak, they do not threaten, they do not show fear. They wait. And hunters only wait for one thing, the moment to strike. The words spread through the chamber like poison. Even those who shouted for war felt their voices weaken. The reptilian warlord bared his teeth. His claws dug into the stone. You speak of fear like children in the dark. I say this: if humans want war, then let them taste it first. Let us march now and burn Earth before it is too late. The crystalline envoy turned sharply, its light flaring in defiance. And if you fail? What then, warlord? If your fleets burn, if your armies vanish, if humanity survives your strike, what then? You will unleash a war that will consume us all. Do you dare gamble the galaxy's future? The chamber erupted again. Voices clashed. Threats filled the air. Some demanded peace talks, others demanded war. No one agreed. The council leader, a towering figure of silver and shadow, rose from the central throne. His voice boomed across the hall, silencing the chaos for a moment. You all tremble. Not because of what humanity has said, but because of what they have not said. You tremble because silence is more terrifying than any roar. And in that silence, You fear the truth that humanity is already ready for war. The words sank into the chamber like a blade. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air was heavy with fear. Then the insectoid queen whispered softly, almost like a prayer. 3,000 years of peace, and now it ends. No one dared to answer her. The council chamber, once a beacon of unity, had become a nest of fear. Armies would soon mobilize. Fleets would soon take their places on the borders. The galaxy stood at the edge of war. And all of it, all of the fear and chaos, had been caused by a single word. The galaxy shouted. The council demanded answers. But Earth remained silent. Across the stars, messages were sent. Urgent broadcasts filled the void of space. Threats, warnings, pleas for peace. Every empire tried to speak with humanity. But humanity answered none of them. No speeches. No promises. No threats. Only silence. And that silence was far more terrifying than war itself. In the Great Council Chamber, alien leaders demanded to know why. Why would Earth not speak? Why would humans not respond? Were they planning an attack? Were they waiting for the galaxy to make the first move? The reptilian warlord slammed his claws against the table, sparks flying. This is an insult. We speak, and they ignore us. We threaten, and they stay silent. Do they believe themselves superior? Do they think their silence makes us fear them? The insectoid queen leaned forward, her wings rattling like knives. It is not superiority. It is strategy. Do you not see? They do not answer because they want us to tremble. They want us to wonder. They want us to destroy ourselves with fear. Her words spread across the chamber like smoke. Some nodded in agreement, their faces grim. Others refused to believe. But the truth could not be denied. The silence of Earth was a weapon. Beyond the council, the silence spread further. Merchants on trading worlds whispered of human fleets moving in secret. Colonists on border planets told stories of massive shadows passing overhead in the night sky, ships so large they blocked out the stars. And still, Earth said nothing. The crystalline envoy glowed faintly, its light flickering with unease. This silence is not weakness. It is warning. When an enemy is truly dangerous, they do not waste words. They only wait for the right moment. The chamber froze with those words. Because everyone knew they were true. For centuries, the galaxy had dealt with enemies who threatened loudly, who made bold speeches before their wars. They had seen warlords who screamed their hatred, empires that declared conquest with fire in their eyes. Those enemies were easy to read, easy to predict, easy to destroy. But humanity said nothing. And that made them impossible to understand. Impossible to predict. Impossible to control. On the outer colonies, fear grew stronger. Pirate kings who once hunted human freighters now refused to attack them. Entire fleets avoided human trade routes. Not because they had been ordered to, but because they were afraid of what might happen if they tried. Some swore they had seen it. Human ships traveling without escort, moving calmly through hostile space. Raiders attacked, and vanished. Not a single survivor. Not a single wreckage. Only silence left behind. Whispers spread like fire. They are testing weapons. They are training for war. They are hunting in the shadows. The council demanded proof. They wanted facts. But proof never came. Every spy vanished. Every ship sent too close disappeared. It was as if humanity was erasing the evidence on purpose. The insectoid queen hissed softly, almost to herself. I do not fear their ships. I do not fear their weapons. I fear their silence. A predator that hunts without sound is the most dangerous of all. No one argued with her. Because deep inside, they all felt the same truth. Humanity was silent, because they no longer needed words. They were preparing. They were waiting. And when the time came, they would strike without warning. The reptilian warlord snarled, his scales burning with anger. Then we must not wait. Let us strike first. Let us burn their worlds before they burn ours. Let our fleets fall upon Earth and end this silence forever. But the crystalline envoy turned sharply, its glow flashing white. And if you fail, Warlord? What if this silence hides an army greater than ours? What if you march to war and never return? Then you will not end the silence, you will unleash it across the galaxy. The chamber fell into chaos again. Some demanded peace, others demanded war. No one could agree. But across the stars, the galaxy knew one thing. Humanity's silence was not weakness. It was strength. It was patience. It was the shadow before the storm. And in that shadow, the galaxy trembled. For silence had become the loudest answer of all. The Council could not find answers in the present. So they turned to the past. Old records were opened. Archives long buried were dragged into the light. Data crystals cracked and burned as ancient files were forced awake. And in those shadows, the galaxy remembered something it had tried so hard to forget. They remembered the old wars. Before the truce, before the Council, before 3,000 years of peace, there had been chaos. And in that chaos, one enemy had risen higher than all others. One enemy had fought with fury no empire could match. One enemy had refused to die, even when death was certain. That enemy was humanity. The insectoid queen's voice echoed through the chamber as she read from the ancient records. Her wings trembled as the words left her mouth. The siege of Kairos. 50 human ships against 200 of ours. They held the line for 6 days. 6 days of fire, blood, and death. When the last ship fell, the humans detonated their cores. They dragged half our fleet into the abyss with them. A murmur rippled across the chamber. Even the warlord, proud and loud, said nothing. The crystalline envoy glowed faintly, its light flickering like a candle. The Battle of Orion Rift. Humans outnumbered 10 to 1. Every empire sent ships. And still, they fought us until our fleets broke. Not because they were stronger, but because they refused to stop. Their will was stronger than their bodies, stronger than their ships, stronger than our fear. The avian delegate let out a sharp cry. I have read the records of our scouts. In those days, humans burned their own colonies to deny us victory. They would rather destroy themselves than surrender. What kind of species does this? What kind of mind chooses fire over chains? The chamber was silent. No one answered. Because everyone already knew. That was the human way. They were not the strongest. They were not the oldest. They were not the most advanced. But they carried something inside them that no empire understood. A fire that refused to die. The reptilian warlord's claws scraped against the table. His voice was low, almost fearful. I was told they had been broken. That the truce ended them. That their will was gone. The insectoid queen turned her sharp eyes toward him. Then you were told lies. Humans do not forget. Humans do not forgive. For 3,000 years, they have waited. They have hidden. They have prepared. And now their silence tells us the truth. The fire is not gone. It was never gone. It was only waiting. Her words spread through the council chamber like a storm. The crystalline envoy whispered, glowing darker than before. If the records are true, then we are already too late. We thought the truce ended their wars. We thought peace tamed them. But no. The truce only gave them time. And humans do not waste time. The avian delegate spread his wings wide. His voice cracked with fear. They learned from us. They learned from every war. Every defeat. Every mistake. They do not forget. They do not repeat. If they rise now, they rise with every lesson of the past burned into their blood. The chamber grew colder. Even the air seemed to tremble. Because everyone understood the same truth. If humanity had been preparing in silence, then they had not been building blindly. They had been learning. Adapting. Evolving. For 3,000 years, while the galaxy lived in peace, humans had been sharpening their claws in the dark. The reptilian warlord snarled, but there was no strength in his voice. Then we must act before they are ready. Before they awaken fully. Before their fleets rise. But the insectoid queen hissed sharply. You still do not understand. They are already awake. Their fleets already rise. Do you not see? Their silence is not the calm before battle, it is the battle itself. They are hunting us with fear. The crystalline envoy lowered its head, light fading into shadow. The past has returned. The truce is over. Humanity has come back to the war they never left. The chamber fell silent once more. Not with peace, but with dread. Because the shadows of the past were no longer shadows. They were real. They were alive. They were human. And across the stars, in the silence of their hidden shipyards, in the black of their secret colonies, humanity was waiting. Waiting, and preparing. For weeks, the council had argued. Some demanded peace, others demanded war. But as they shouted, as they threatened, as they wasted their breath, humanity moved in silence. In the shadows of space, far from the eyes of the galaxy, the hidden armada began to wake. On the far side of Earth's moon, massive shipyards glowed like fireflies in the darkness. For centuries, the galaxy had believed the moon was nothing more than rock and dust. But now, structures of steel and light rose from its surface. Docks stretched for miles, holding warships the size of cities. Engines roared to life, their echoes lost in the vacuum of space. And it was not only the moon. Asteroid fields across the solar system had been hollowed out. Inside, fleets of human ships slept in silence, hidden beneath rock and shadow. Entire planets on the edge of known space had been transformed into fortresses, their skies filled with factories that never rested. The hidden armada was not a dream. It was real. The first ships emerged from the shadows like ghosts. Sleek, black, and sharp, built for war. Carriers with bays large enough to hold thousands of fighters. Destroyers armed with weapons that glowed with strange new energy. Dreadnoughts whose hulls were thick with unknown alloys, stronger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Alien spies tried to report what they saw. But none returned. Their ships vanished into the void, their signals cut off mid-broadcast. It was as if the armada itself reached out and erased them. In the council chamber, panic spread. The insectoid queen slammed her wings against the wall. I warned you. I told you this was no myth. The humans are ready. Their fleets are already awake. If we wait any longer, it will be too late. The reptilian warlord snarled, his voice trembling with anger and fear. Then we must strike now. If we hesitate, if we delay, their fleets will grow stronger. Every day we waste is another day humanity sharpens its claws. But the crystalline envoy glowed dim, its light heavy with dread. You still do not understand. They have been preparing for 3,000 years. Do you think we can undo that in 3 days? 3 months? No. Humanity is not waiting for us. They are waiting for themselves, for the moment they decide the galaxy belongs to them. The chamber fell into silence. Because deep down, every empire knew the envoy was right. This was not a build-up for defense. It was not desperation. It was patience. The humans had been preparing since the day the truce was signed. Every secret shipyard, every hidden fortress, every child raised with fire in their eyes, it was all part of the same plan. And now that plan was almost complete. Beyond Earth, the hidden armada grew stronger. Carriers launched squadrons of fighters into the void. Dreadnoughts tested their weapons on lifeless asteroids, shattering mountains into dust with a single blast. Fleets drilled in silence, practicing movements so precise it seemed they were guided by one mind. The galaxy watched from afar, powerless. Every attempt to spy, every attempt to sabotage, ended in silence. A rumor spread across the stars. A whisper that became a storm. They have weapons that bend light. They have ships that vanish and reappear. They have technology stolen from the ancient ruins. None of it could be proven. But none of it needed to be. The truth was simple. Humanity's armada was no longer hidden. It was rising. In the council chamber, the insectoid queen whispered, almost in awe. They waited until we grew weak with peace. They waited until our fleets rusted and our armies softened. And now they show us what they have built in the dark. The reptilian warlord growled, but there was no strength in his voice. If this armada launches, the galaxy will burn. The crystalline envoy's light dimmed to a pale glow. Then perhaps it is already too late. Perhaps the galaxy's fate was decided 3,000 years ago, when the truce was signed. Humanity never accepted peace. They only accepted time. And across the stars, as fleets of steel and fire rose from the shadows, one truth spread through every empire. The hidden armada was awake. And humanity was ready. 4 weeks, the Galactic Council waited. They argued, they shouted, they panicked. But through it all, humanity said nothing. No messenger arrived. No diplomat came forward. No transmission was sent. The silence was louder than any weapon. And then, one night across the galaxy, the silence ended. Every screen, every hologram, every signal channel suddenly froze. From the smallest trading station to the grand halls of alien empires, all communication lines carried the same thing, a human face. It was not a soldier. It was not a leader in armor. It was a simple man, standing tall, wearing a black uniform with no insignia. His eyes were sharp, his voice calm. But there was something in his tone that froze even the bravest generals. Council. Galaxy. You ask why we prepare for war. He paused, and in that pause, countless alien hearts trembled. For 3,000 years, you thought peace was ours. But it was never peace. It was a truce. A pause. Nothing more. Across the stars, billions watched. The insectoid queen leaned forward in rage. Arrogant humans, she hissed. They dare mock us. But no one answered her. Because every empire was listening. The human continued. You laughed at us. You called us weak. You sent spies, you sent threats, and you believed we had forgotten how to fight. But humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. We only wait. The council chamber erupted with voices, but the humans' words cut through the noise like fire through paper. You want to know why we prepare? Because the galaxy will never leave us in peace. Because deep in your hearts, you all fear us. And you are right to fear us. The reptilian warlord slammed his claw against the table. This is madness. This is a declaration of. But the message was not finished. The human raised his hand. And behind him, a hologram lit up. Not of Earth. Not of the moon. But of the hidden armada itself. Gigantic carriers stretched into the void. Dreadnoughts glowed with energy. Swarms of fighters filled the stars like locusts. Each ship bore the mark of Earth. Each one was real. And then the human said words that would be remembered for all time. For 3,000 years, you enjoyed peace because we allowed it. But the truce is over. The age of silence is over. The galaxy will now see the strength of mankind. The chamber fell dead silent. Even the most arrogant voices were gone. The crystalline envoy's light flickered weakly. They are not warning us. They are telling us. The insectoid queen hissed, wings trembling. No, this cannot be. They cannot be so bold. But the reptilian warlord whispered, almost to himself. They can. And they are. The message continued. We do not seek to destroy. But if you force us, if you dare to strike first, then remember this. We will not stop. We will not surrender. We will fight until the stars themselves fall dark. Humanity stands united, and humanity will never kneel again. With that, the hologram faded. The screens went black. The silence returned. But the silence was no longer empty. It was heavy. It was terrifying. Across the galaxy, panic spread. Entire populations asked their rulers, what will we do? Can we fight them? Should we surrender? Armies scrambled. Fleets prepared. But even as they armed themselves, a shadow hung over them, the image of the hidden armada, ready to burn across the stars. In the council chamber, the leaders sat in silence. The crystalline envoy whispered, its voice trembling like glass. The humans did not threaten us. They warned us. There is a difference. The insectoid queen slammed her claw against the wall. We cannot allow this. We must strike now, before they unleash their fleet. The reptilian warlord lowered his head. You still do not understand. If we strike now, we are already too late. For the first time in centuries, the Great Council had no answer. No plan. No command. Because one truth had been burned into their minds. Humanity had spoken. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy was silent after the human message. Every world, every empire, every soldier, and every ruler waited. Would humanity attack first? Or would someone else make the first move? The Galactic Council met again, their shining hall filled with tension. The insectoid queen's wings trembled with rage. They mock us. They threaten us. And we sit here in silence like cowards. No. If humanity wants war, then let us give them war first. The reptilian warlord growled, his tail slamming against the floor. Be careful. You have seen their fleets. You have seen their power. If we strike and fail, our empires will burn. The crystalline envoy glowed weakly, its voice like cracking glass. Perhaps the truth is worse. Perhaps the war has already begun, and we do not yet realize it. The chamber erupted into shouts. Some demanded attack, others demanded retreat. But in the chaos, a single message broke through. An emergency transmission. A desperate cry. Council. This is Fleet Station Verus. Human ships have arrived. The chamber froze. Every eye turned to the projection. On the hologram, an alien station floated above a barren world. Hundreds of alien ships formed a defensive wall. They were armed, they were ready. And then, out of the darkness, human ships appeared. They did not decloak with a flash. They did not rush forward in chaos. They simply appeared, sliding out of shadow as if the void itself had hidden them. Sleek black destroyers. Carriers the size of mountains. Fighters swarming like living storms. The defenders opened fire. Blazing energy, missiles, plasma torpedoes all filled the void. But the humans did not fall. Their ships moved as one, weaving through fire with unnatural precision. Shields glowed, weapons blazed, and in moments the defending wall cracked. One dreadnought fired a single beam. The alien commander screamed. An entire battleship was cut in half, glowing fragments spinning into space. The council chamber shook with voices. They strike without mercy. They warned us, this is their beginning. The insectoid queen shrieked. Fight them. Fight them now. But the crystalline envoy whispered. No, look closer. They are not destroying everything. They are choosing. And it was true. The human fleet tore through the defenders, but they did not burn the planet below. They did not slaughter civilians. They dismantled only the warships, only the defenses. They struck with precision, as if sending a message. We could take more, but we do not need to. The alien station's final transmission reached the council. They do not fight like us. They fight like they already know the ending. Then the screen went black. Silence returned to the council chamber. But it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of fear. Because now, the first strike had been made. Humanity had shown its hand. And they had not struck blindly. They had struck with purpose. The reptilian warlord lowered his head, his voice heavy. This is only the beginning. They will not stop at one station. Tomorrow it will be another. Next week, a world. Next month, perhaps one of us. The insectoid queen hissed, but her voice trembled. Then we must unite. For the first time in our history, the empires must stand as one. If we do not, humanity will pick us apart, piece by piece. The crystalline envoy's glow dimmed until it was only a pale spark. And even if we unite, will it matter? For 3,000 years, they have been waiting. And now they move with the patience of hunters who already smell blood. The council chamber fell into silence. Across the galaxy, fear spread faster than fire. Civilizations built their fleets. Armies marched. Worlds prepared for invasion. But no one could escape the thought that haunted every mind. The humans had waited. The humans had prepared. The humans had struck. And this was only the beginning.